It's CardKast with Mike and Lenz, the show about everything sports cards, autographs, and memorabilia. I'm Len plus Z, and I'm here with my friend and co-host Mike D. Hey, we're back. It's 8:26. When was the last time we did a podcast, Mike?
8:26 of last year, maybe? I don't know. It's been too long. Too long, my friend.
Way too long. We have to, just shovel all of our other priorities out of the way and just keep doing this.
You know, it's funny. You would think that the COVID would have given us more of an opportunity, but I think it's, just life has taken unexpected or expected turns, and we just haven't had a chance to get together.
Well, and it's been crazy and booming in the sports collectibles, baseball card and autograph world, and we're pretty excited to have a special guest on today. I would call him a through the mail expert because I know he's been through the mail autograph expert. He's been doing this for a long time, but that's not all that he does. And we'll get more into that in a little bit. But, please welcome to the show our good friend, Dan Lissauer.
Wow. Listen to the roar of that crowd. That makes me feel pretty good. What's going on, guys?
Dan, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here with you guys. I love your podcast, so now I'm a part of it. Great.
You are anytime you want to come on. And, I think that it's only fair to let the listeners in on, the history of actually the three of us, but, pretty much almost all three of us kind of started hanging out together. I mean, me separately with Mike and Dan at different times, but all of us became pretty good friends throughout the shows, very good friends. And, so when I first met Dan, I believe it was at a Hofstra show in Long Island. It was a multi-day show, and I was perusing his inventory and noticed that he had a lot of baseball cards that were actual, playing days cards with, in-person autographs on them. So they weren't pack-pulled autographs. And he had just a ton of them. So, we started talking and everything, and I found out what his eBay handle was. I was like, I've been buying from you for the past couple of years. So it was a neat little thing to find that out at the shows. But, having that kind of an inventory, even back then, I think, was it 2008 or something like that when we first met? How did you acquire that kind of, and that wasn't even that's just what you brought to the show. That wasn't even like what you had at your house. So how did you acquire that kind of an inventory?
Yeah, well, actually, I think it was even before 2008, Len. I think it might have been 2005. So we've been going to 15 years strong here.
Yeah.
But really, I'll just give you a quick story how it all started. And it's very true. I do the signed cards that are not necessarily pack-pulled. And as you know, we went through a lot of difficulties in the beginning with that because a lot of people were not onto that. They didn't like it. There was a stigma, I remember, having a vintage card or even a trading card signed that wasn't pack-pulled. And a lot of dealers and collectors said, oh, no, that stuff is ruined if the card is signed. So we've been, it took a while to get to where we are now and how the market has just, and I'm sure we'll go into it in a little bit, but how the market has embraced the memorabilia and the autograph cards particularly. But for me, this is how it started, Len and Mike. One day I was at a show, and this must have been 25 years ago, and a dealer had a Leo DeRocha. The card was unbelievable condition, and it must have been a 1948 Bowman, and it was signed. And I knew it was real, and I went up to the dealer, and I said, that's kind of cool. How much do you want for the Leo DeRocha? And he said, what do I want for it? It's ruined, you know that. And I said, okay, well, what are you looking for? He says, give me $3. So I bought it for $3, and this is really when eBay was just starting to boom 25 years ago. I put it on eBay. It went for $165, and from that moment on, a fire started inside me, and I saw the future of, autograph cards and autograph memorabilia, and I was hooked instantly. And I did it for a while. I did a lot of buying and selling off eBay, purchasing large collections of autograph cards. And then, as you had mentioned earlier, I started getting into the through the mail business, and where you would, write a player, request an autograph, and they would mail it back. Sometimes you throw a few bucks in there for them, and that exploded. And I did more and more research. Who was involved in signing in the mail, who wasn't, and you, Lenny, actually helped me a lot. You really changed the course of my business and collecting. You gave me advice on what kind of cards people would want to see autographed. And then it exploded into that. It became rookies, and I was doing rookies before anyone was doing rookies getting signed. And then it just kind of took off from there like a rocket ship. So it's been a long time coming, but it's been really pretty neat to see. Pretty neat to see the hobby embrace it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the ideas, even the championship years that they won. So if you were an 88 Dodger, it's like get those 88 Dodgers cards, plus, get the rookies and things like that. So, Mike, I think you were about to say something.
No, I was just going to say, Dan was so far ahead of the curve because we look at things now, and, I mean, the price of signed rookies. Try to buy a Pete Rose signed rookie card. I mean, things like that, it just exploded. I know when I do my breaks, signed cards are like Beckett slabbed or PSA slab signed cards. People go nuts for them. I do these specific breaks where we have Beckett slabbed wrestling cards. And when I'm telling you, people go nuts for them. Even like the minor wrestlers, people love it.
Oh, no, you said wrestling cards. Here we go. Let us have it, Dan.
I know Dan's a wrestling fan.
You rang my bell right there.
Yeah, well, I figured I would. That's why I kind of threw it out there. But yeah, it's unbelievable. Everybody embraces it now. No, there's no stigma. There's no, $3 Leo DeRocher cards anymore. It's just an absolutely booming business and hobby. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and definitely the wrestling too. I got involved in the wrestling and very early on. Lenny, you gave me some hard time. I don't know if you want to talk about that on the air, but I just saw my generation coming back to something like that, and they have, and it's exploded, which is great. And it's just always trying to stay ahead of the curve, always trying to see what people like, and if you see small pockets of interest here and there, to me that says something's coming down, the road in the future. And generally, it's been a good indicator of, a really strong market in whatever area, you want to do it. So it's been great. I mean, it's a lot of fun. And Mike, it's kind of funny. I actually listed some Beckett signed wrestling cards today, and I got offers, tons of offers already. So
there you go. It's I'm telling you, it's exploding. I can't say exploding because it's there. It's at the apex. It's absolutely wonderful.
There's there's Facebook rooms and groups now that are dedicated towards, helping the beginners or even just people who have been doing through the mail casually. And that even the through the mail autographs just in this past year because of COVID has actually, there's been like either shutdown or a crazy raise in prices of some of the players because they're getting bombarded with requests. And, but before we get into that, Dan, so being that, you pretty much do it in your sleep. I mean, I'll never forget one time we came back from a show. I was ready to unwind with a 6-pack of beers and you're sitting there Indian style in the middle of your living room, sorting out the cards, the vintage cards that you just purchased, getting ready to mail out. I'm like, dude, you can't wait till tomorrow. I'm like, no, I got to get these out today. The guys might not be here tomorrow. So I got to get them out like today, tonight, like they got to go. So can you give us a little bit of the process of how, like what you do? So, you get you have your envelopes, you're buying stamps in bulk and things like that. What is your process as far as, purchasing the cards that you like to get? And then, even figuring out the addresses, like what do you do? How do you do things?
Yeah. I mean, thanks to the internet, there's so many resources now to find their addresses. You can use, sportscollectors.net is a great one, with a minimal, yearly fee you would pay to have access to it. But I mean, really, you can find any address, just putting it in there. And, you just touched on it, especially in the last year with COVID. A lot of these athletes aren't able to go to shows anymore right now. And they do want to reach out to their fans. So they're offering, through the mail kind of process where, you send them, an envelope with a few cards and some cash or, photos or whatever they're okay with taking. And, they'll sign it and send it back. And, everyone asks me, well, sometimes you have to send cash. Are you ever afraid that it'll get lost? And, it happens. I'm not going to say it doesn't. But the amount of benefit you get and the fun you get from sending tons of different players, even if you get 90% back, and you'll get more than 90% back with a little research, you're already ahead of the game. And so many great players are out there doing it now. And like you said, they want to stay in touch with their fans. And, what I do is basically get the kind of cards that I want signed by them. And, years ago, I didn't have the kind of money I have now. So I didn't always like to send money. But as I've gotten older, and it's really been great for me in the business, I like to give back to these guys too. So even if they don't request money, I send them money. Sometimes they put extra inscriptions, and they do it really nicely for you. So there's always that going on. But yeah, you just mail a few cards, you get their address, and you can research, success and failures for some players. There's players that they're not even going to look at your mail, they're going to throw it in the garbage. And then there's other players that are automatic. And, within a week, you're going to get your stuff back fully signed. And, it's great. It's very time consuming, but the reward is really great.
Well, I'll tell you that, the reward, I also remember coming back from the show and like shoveling the door open, and like a pile of your, returns would be like bulging and moving. It's like you had a pile on the floor from the mailman. So, and you were super excited. Oh yeah, I got this guy, I got this rookie, this guy, and I remember in the, I think it was like probably, like 2010, 2011, your focus started to shift from baseball. Cause I remember you're like, dude, I have like 2 5,000 count boxes of signed 60s and 50s baseball cards. And some of those guys that you had, big quantity on, they were requesting money, and you're like, I already have so many, and your focus started to shift into other genres, other sports like football. And I remember like 5 or 6 years ago, you got really hot in doing the wrestling with, the 85 top signed cards. I go back and look at 85 top signed wrestling cards, and I can't believe some of the prices that they're either being asked for or what they're actually going for.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's just it. You got to move into different areas. I felt like I sort of saturated baseball. Most people are baseball fans, and, everybody has a 1973 Topps card, and they send it off, and it gets signed, and, there's so many of them out there. And I saturated my own collection with it that I started looking for, football's popular, right? Football's becoming the American game now. So I started researching some older football players, and, do they sign, and what kind of cards would be cool to have them sign? The Fleer cards or Philadelphia gum cards. So, that all began like that. Hollywood. I went into Hollywood a little bit. There were a lot of Hollywood, stars that had no problem, reaching out to their fans. So then it became Hollywood, and it just, every time you get bored, and you would think you wouldn't get bored because you're making money with, baseball, whatever, but you do, we're all collectors inside. We're all business, but we're all collectors too. And so you switch to something different, and, it's been great. I never get bored because I always switch to something new, something hot. So the wrestling thing right now for me is just, incredible. I sell and buy so many wrestling autographs now. I was actually talking to a friend the other day. I was like, I could probably just do, be the wrestling guy and just buy everything wrestling, but I still have love for the other sports and non-sports stuff too. So I do that also, but it's a lot of fun, and it's very profitable.
Now correct me if I'm wrong. I know that you've actually personally worked with some wrestlers in the past, and I think like just recently you're telling me about some guys that you'll buy into some signings and things like that, which is another option, especially with, the relationships that you've created over the years. Sometimes if you are friendly with promoters, you can help their funding of bringing an athlete or a wrestler in by, quote unquote, buying into the signing. What have you done recently, and who were some of the wrestlers that you have worked with?
Well, actually most recently was actually Jake the Snake Roberts. Because of social media, I was able to reach out to him I think it was Instagram. And I had met him at a show in New York a few years ago, and I approached him with a bunch of cards, and I said, "Hey, I'm looking to get all these signed. Can we make a deal?" And he did, and he signed them, and we joked around a little bit. And it was really nothing more the first time, kind of like that. And then I recently reached out to him again on Instagram, and I was like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I was the guy at the show," and da-da-da. And we started talking. And he was just, just basic stuff, back and forth about what he's up to, what I am up to. And then, of course, I went into a little bit of the business that we're at hand. And I said, "Would you be interested in signing some stuff? And maybe, when this whole COVID thing passes, coming up out into up to New York, and we could do a show or something." And he was down for it. And, I did a signing of about 50 or 75 pieces like that. He signed all different kinds of cards, photos. So it was really, really cool experience. Very easy. It really is easy now to contact people. A few years ago, you would send a letter, and maybe they read it, maybe they didn't. You never really knew. But now you can actually get a response. Before Jake the Snake Roberts, and Len, this, I told you, I had met King Kong Bundy. Very similar circumstance. We actually became very good friends. And I would bring him to a couple shows up here in New York, and he would sign for me, and we would just have a great time. He's a really great guy. Was a great guy. Unfortunately, he passed a few years ago. But that sort of really got me going into the wrestling even more, because he really loved wrestling. He was an incredible heel, and he loved doing these shows, and he loved the memorabilia side of it too. We would. He would call me up some nights, and we would just talk about his wrestling days. And it was like, it's so exciting because I grew up in the rock and wrestling era. So to me, it was unbelievable that King Kong Bundy.
He was kind of coming to the end of the 80s, King Kong Bundy. I just remember being like, I'd watch him and I'd be hiding underneath my blankets when I was a kid. And because he was just so mean looking and big and imposing, and just you're right, he played like one of the best heels he could. But I felt like, the WWF at the time is what they were called. I felt like they were kind of like losing him a little bit. Like he was a great heel, but I just remember towards the late 80s, they just shifted from not using him as much. I mean, did he ever talk to you about that? Cause I don't think he really made it too far into the 90s before he started doing like more house shows and things like that. Maybe he was over in Japan. I don't know. Did he ever talk to you about that?
Yeah. He talked a little bit, and what I'm about to say is nothing that, you couldn't, research on your own, but he had a little bit of a falling out, I think, with Vince McMahon. He was, getting big in the mid '80s, and he's a really funny guy. He actually did comedy. He would do comedy and all sorts of different kinds of commercials. He was on Married with Children. I don't know if you remember that episode.
I do remember.
I do too. That was a great episode. I think he was one of Peggy's relatives.
Yeah. I think he was. Yeah. So he was really starting to branch out, and I don't think. And again, this is it's just what I've heard. I'm not 100% sure, but through the grapevine, I don't think Vince McMahon approved of everything he was doing, or whatnot. And so I think that unfortunately they may have had a little bit of a tiff, and I think that sort of affected his I guess sellability. I don't know what you would call it, but he did start to fade out a little bit. He did make a comeback in the 90s. I don't know if you remember that. In the mid 90s again with the WWF. And then from there, that was pretty much it, other than doing like indie and sort of kind of like house shows.
Dan, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the best autograph cards you've ever gotten back in the mail? I'm sure with the tons of stuff you've gotten back, there got to be some special ones or some ones that you hold dear or that you thought were really valuable. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's really so interesting. That's a great question, by the way, because, obviously there's some that are more valuable and there's some that are meaningful. I'll tell you one story was I had sent to Ron Santo, and this is when autograph rookie cards were really starting to heat up. I had sent to Ron Santo 10 rookie cards and a check. I think at the time he was charging $8 an autograph. So I sent the $80 and the 10 rookies. And literally maybe like a month or two, sadly, he passed away. So I really never expected to, see it again, or and I was fine. Obviously, I think it went to the JDRF, which is the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and a lot of times these athletes actually, just not to go too much off topic here, but they ask for money to a charity, which is really nice. So I didn't care, it was such a good donation that I kind of just put it out of my mind. About 5 months later, I got a package. And it said Santo on it because I had put, his last name on the return package. And so I'm thinking, oh, how nice. They must have found the card. They're still worth some money. So it's nice. I'm going to get the cards returned. Well, I opened it up and it was a note. And they said that these were some of the last ones that he had signed. And that,
wow.
Unfortunately he had passed away, and we found them and we wanted to send them to you. And there were 10 Ron Santos signed rookie cards. And, Mike, you brought up, what's expensive. Well, at the time they were going for, $300, $350 a pop. I don't even know what they go for now. And there were 10 of them. And wow. It was just a really strange thing that had happened, but it was kind of cool, and that they did come back. So that was probably one of my bigger hauls, I guess you could say. Unfortunate circumstances that it happened that way. But still, it was a nice feeling because the money did go to charity, as I saw the cash check.
Those cards were destined to hit that price point anyways, because they're still, I look because I need that card because it's an all-star rookie cup card. So I need that card because I don't know if I told you this, Dan, but I'm back on working on that set again. So where I'm trying to get all the signed cup cards, and I've put a pretty decent sized dent in it. And I've looked, and I mean, sometimes you could kind of sneak one on open auction, maybe 200 to 250, if you're lucky. But no, that card, I mean, you can't go on eBay and buy that card. I think everybody's asking 350 or higher for that card. I think even the more sadder thing is that, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they put him in the Hall of Fame until after he passed, kind of like a Ken Stabler scenario. But
you know what? I don't really, I'm not 100% sure about that, but that could very well be.
Yeah. I'm thinking and I know towards the end of his life, because of his diabetes, and because he had, I believe, one of his legs amputated, it was tough for him to get around to do shows. So it was nice of him to actually, take product in and, send, take in a donation and send it over to that foundation, which was fantastic. And then
really,
I think I remember too, like you had like a pretty interesting, I think you had like a couple interesting relationships, like with like Adam West, Batman, and maybe Bart Starr.
Yeah, I had also done mailings with those guys as well. Adam West, we just sort of just talk through the mail, and he would he told me anything you want to send me, just send a couple bucks, and he would sign it. So I would send vintage Batman cards that he would sign, some photos, and it was really nice. It was really cool. And he was really, really good with it through the mail. Good signer. And the same with Bart Starr. He would charge a very small fee to his foundation. I think at the time it was $20. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time charging $20. How do you resist, right?
Right.
So he would sign, and I would send him. A couple times I sent him a rookie card and kind of held my breath because it was such an expensive card, and it would come back always come back signed. So it's just a great feeling when you send something you really like, and boom, you open the mail and it's signed beautifully, and it's just a great feeling.
So now here's a thing that. I kind of want to just also stress out to the listeners. Not only were you through the mail, you have the process licked, and you've kind of been ahead of the curve as far as, you did the baseball, you did the football, and jumping to wrestling and celebrities and things like that. Like I would, it's funny because we would do shows together, and all of a sudden you have like a full showcase of like James Earl Jones and signed Star Wars cards, and you were just getting like it became really like your booth was like just pop culture autographs. I know the whole thing with Leo DeRocher on the card, kind of sparked it, but you also have a knack for identifying, good autographs towards bad autographs. And I remember you explaining to me like what your background was in school and things like that, because you were also buying autographs, getting them certified by companies, and, also, reselling on eBay, or, at shows or things like that. But, you also knew how to spot fakes. Like, I mean, people, use you to kind of like, hey, is this good before I go spend money at a third-party authentication company? Can you explain I don't know, maybe it's like the love of the autograph, or just, how you got really good? Because in the beginning there wasn't really a strong database either.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll explain. So, you hit it on the head right there, the love of the autograph. And just for some reason, and I know there's a lot of us out there, I always loved a signature. I always felt that was it took you to a place, it took you to a time, and it was just really cool to hold something and know that at some specific moment that player signed that piece. And of course, you want it to be real. You don't want to have something in the back of your head where you're like, oh, they didn't really sign this, or maybe their secretary or a clubhouse signed it. So not only was it great to get an autograph, but you also wanted to make sure it was real. So, yeah, I mean, really, it just, I went to school. I was a art history minor, and a lot of what we would do is compare works of art from different centuries and high and late Italian Renaissance, and you would sort of, kind of, I guess the best word is, compare and contrast. Why is this similar to this? Why is it different? And I would always do really well on those kind of tests. So that's really where the background of it began. And then I just got into comparing different signatures and looking at how they're formed. And then it's just Lenny. It's just a lot of looking at autographs. I got to tell you. I mean, I told someone the other day, if I had looked at 1 million Mickey Mantle autographs, I'm probably underestimating the amount of Mickey Mantle autographs, I've looked at. And, even to this day, it's not a perfect science. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm sure listeners out there have brought their autographs in and they know they're real, or they got them themselves, and someone else says, well, that's not real. So it's not a perfect science, but you can limit the amount of mistakes you make by researching and taking time to look at the autograph and become familiar with the autograph. But, there's times people will show me a Mickey Mantle, and I don't want to be the guy who just says, oh, it's good or no good. I really want to look at it, even though I've seen it 1 million times or more. It's still, every time I look at an autograph, I want to take the time to really see how it fits in, into the context of other Mickey Mantle autographs. So it's just a lot of hard work. It's not for everybody. It's like an art, and you got to work on it. It's a craft. Some people don't want to deal with that, and I've learned that. They want to know that their autograph is Beckett or JSA, and then they'll buy it. Anything else, they don't want to take that risk. They don't want to do the legwork. And I get that. There's room for those collectors and dealers as well. But for me, I always want to see if I can, pick out stuff I like and then, get it passed. And 90, 95% of the stuff I buy is generally authentic, or, as we've talked many times, it's deemed to be authentic. And sometimes the 5-10% they deem to be not authentic, but sometimes I know that it's still authentic, even though they won't put their name on it, which is fine.
And what authentication companies do you use and you trust with your autographs?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them right now, so it's great. You have a lot of choices. Beckett is fantastic. JSA has been around for a long time. People use PSA DNA. CAS, Mike Root, who started FCC Authentic. He's fantastic. I trust him with all, looking at my stuff. So I would say that's probably the grouping that I use the most. There are a few more But generally, I don't. Who's ever at the shows really makes it easy for me because I can have different people kind of look at different things. And yeah, those are probably my four, favorite ones to use.
All right, Dan, what about some of your auction house purchases? I've heard from Lenny that you've purchased some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I have. I'll admittedly, I don't do as much with the auction houses anymore because my through the mail business is so strong, and my buying and selling off eBay is so strong that I can't take in the volume of auction purchases. But I mean, I've bought lots of Perez Steel postcards signed by Mickey Mantle and Ted Williams. I've bought lots of autographed baseballs. Same thing, Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax. I mean, everything. I generally like to stay to trading cards, index cards and cuts, photos, and baseballs. I try to stay away from bigger pieces. It's just much easier to deal with smaller things like that than trying to ship, large items and whatnot, even though I love the way they look and I love framing pieces. But I really try to buy like lots of signed cards, that kind of thing, lots of baseballs and whatnot. And, it's a lot of fun. You buy on a auction house and then you go through them and you get some really cool finds in there where people miss on that.
Yeah. And and I also think too that there was a time when I think, going back to the earlier 2000s, like 03, 04, 05, the trust from dealers just wasn't there, or the interest wasn't there. And I think you had more of an advantage, whereas today there's more and more people that are seeking that stuff out, whether it's for their personal collection or they're looking to buy and resell. So, so it got a lot more competitive as well. So you add the juice, there's more people involved, and you're not really getting maybe you're not getting a great deal, or you really have to fight your way out of actually winning a large amount of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. Earlier on, like you said, people would lot a lot more things. And so, you had a chance, if you had a lot of knowledge, to kind of go through it. But now it is so competitive. Even eBay early on, you used to be able to buy, lots of like baseballs and lots of signed cards. Well, eBay stores started, and people said, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to just sell these 50 baseballs, in one auction. I'm going to put each one up for a certain price. So the whole buying and buying in volume of good stuff really slowed down, both, through the auctions and through eBay. I noticed people started with the stores and whatnot. So that kind of took a chunk into that aspect of, what I was doing.
And I also remember, I also remember too, that back in the early 2000s, like 03, 04, like when I didn't know you personally, but I would watch, your auctions, and I would win auctions from you. You had there was some incredible stuff coming out. I mean, there was like fines in those auction houses. Like if you hit like if I'm not mistaken, it could have been like, a 60 Flair baseball sign set that you broke up, or, just a like starter set of 55 Bowman. And, you, like you said, there wasn't really a store at the time. So you were kind of forced to run auctions. And I remember like talking to you, I don't know, maybe like 08, 09. And you're like, man, some of that stuff I wish I had back. And I'm sure if you could remember some of that stuff, you probably really want it back now, because some of that stuff just exploded.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. Many years ago when I started, I would also auction off my stuff. I didn't have a store. So, if I bought something for $30 and I sold it for $50, I was really excited. Look, I made, $20, $40, $30. But I wasn't getting the value really either. Somebody else was really picking it up. I was getting a little of the value, but not the full value. And that's also when I had met somebody and we decided to really start an eBay store. And that changed everything, because now you could take your gems and you could put them for whatever price you want, and you could wait, and you weren't forced to move it at a price that you kind of were like a little unhappy getting. But yeah, there's so much stuff I've sold that, I would love to have back. and just it's a testament to how hot the market is. Really, I mean, every day I see stuff that I cannot believe how much they go for, and it's just incredible. It just never slows down. It's quite impressive, especially in the last couple of years.
So, how many items do you have? I mean, like, I know like as you get stuff in, you're just constantly listing and stuff like that. But I mean, how many signed items? I mean, most of everything in your store is signed, correct? I mean, for the most part, your eBay store.
Yes. Yeah. Everything in my, I actually have 2 stores. But yeah. Everything's pretty much signed.
And roughly what kind of inventory do you think you have, like piece count, like online? Is it 1,000 items, 10,000 items?
We're probably, with both of my stores, probably over 30,000.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It really is. And when you're doing 30,000 items, if you sell 400 or 500, that's a great month. But now you got to replace 400 or 500 to keep it going. So it's quite, it's a lot. It really can be a lot. But it's a love, it's a passion, and it's worth it. And I love providing a customer with something that they want. They get, people get so excited when they find something that they've been looking for. And I think one of the things that's made me successful in the market is I really try to find some obscure stuff and really put it out there. And, people love it. And that's a great feeling for both of us.
Yeah. I mean, look, part of it is you're providing a service. And if you want to check out Dan's eBay stores, I'll put the links down below. One of them I think is Dan Lissauer and the other one is Great Lucky Finds. Is that correct?
Yeah,
okay.
That's correct.
Yeah. So we'll put the links down in the store. If you want to peruse what 30,000 autographs look like, we could definitely do that. So.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And, maybe somebody listening there is not really into the autograph market, into the memorabilia market, and this will get them in there. And I see it all the time. I just started talking to an individual who knows, Jimmy and Ryan through the shows, and he would have some things signed. And he's retiring soon and wants to get involved full time into this. So, he's become a good customer of mine, really nice guy. And it's fun. I'm watching him pick up the same passion that I had, to take me where I had to go. And it's really cool to see new people get involved and see how cool it is, how fun it is, how profitable it can be, and, how much joy it brings people.
Yeah, I hope in the end of the day, that's really what it's about. We talk about the business side of it, but really it's about connecting with maybe your past or something that you really, really love. And autographs especially, like I know I have specific autographs in my house, things that mean the world to me. Just connecting to that one piece of that one card, that one piece of memorabilia is just such a great thing. And for you to be able to be like the middleman between the person who signed it and the person who receives it is got to be so gratifying. And it's an awesome, awesome service that you're providing while, making it a business. So it's very cool.
Yeah. Well, for a living, I'm a lawyer, and lawyers don't always make people happy. So
got to even it out, balance it out a little bit.
You gotta balance it out a little bit, and it really does make people happy. So it's a win-win. I mean, and if your prices are too high or they don't like it, they don't have to buy it. So it's fair to everybody.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell everybody. I've gotten stuff from Dan. I've contacted Dan about autographs to see what he thought, and Dan has been nothing but wonderful to me. So, Dan, thank you so much for being awesome.
Yeah, keep them coming always. I never have a problem. I'll always look at anything anyone wants to send me. I was actually doing it for a while on a Facebook site. I think it was Autographs 101, and I was having a lot of fun with it, but it really came to the point where a lot of people, they didn't want to really put any work into it. And they would send you 50 scans and, of like obscure things. And they would be like, get back to me in 20 minutes.
Oh my God.
It's so funny. I get that all the time because I admin a few rooms and I run my own break room. I get random people messaging me, sending me pictures of like Honus Wagner reprint rookie cards, asking me what they're worth. And I'm like, I hate to tell you, I just had a guy the other day ask me, he messaged me on Facebook, and he showed me a whole bunch of like Nap LaJoie reprints and all this stuff. And he's like, oh, my friend's dad has had these for years. I said, yeah, probably since the 80s when they came out. And he's like, no, he's had them, later than, longer than that. I said, listen, the Honus Wagner is a reprint.
Yeah.
He showed me, even today, he showed me a Roberto Clemente 72 tops reprint from like one of the newer top sets. And he shows me the front and back. And he goes, I said, listen, it's a reprint. It's probably worth about a quarter, maybe 50 cents. He goes, how do you know it's a reprint? I said, it says reprint on the back. I was like, oh my God, nobody, sometimes people just don't do the research.
Well, yeah, and Mike, you just hit on another point. Not only is the research not done, but one of the worst parts of being in the autograph industry, and I'm sure you can attest to this, Lenny, too, is oftentimes you have to break bad news to people. And I have a lot of friends that, can you come and look at this? And I'll come and see it, and I know right away. I know where they got it. I know it's not good. It's junk. And they're giving you a story, and I know he would only buy from Jack's Hollywood Collectibles. Jack at Hollywood Collectibles would never screw anybody over. Unfortunately, you're telling people that, do you want me to just play along? I can play along. But if you really want the truth, what you have is not authentic, and there is no value. And that really is probably the worst part of the whole thing. People are very excited. They're very passionate about what they have. And oftentimes it's difficult to tell them that, there's no value in what they have.
So outside of the actual signature itself, which you should be comparing, and you should do the work, and you should do the research. I mean, we've done it, and that's how, we've been able to, prosper in the business, have fun, and because nobody feels like, getting hosed over and over and over again.
Right.
But aside from that, if you're looking, let's say you're looking to purchase a collection or something, and I know them, so I'm just going to ask you, but, are there tells of things like, certain cert cards or companies or whatever, things like that? Cause you brought up a company that obviously you'd want to stay away from. Are there companies on your list that, you just look at and forget about even looking at the autograph, or how do you assess that?
Well, yeah, I mean, there definitely are. And to avoid potential litigation, I don't think I'm going to say the names of the companies specifically. But
yeah, I mean, nobody's listening. We have like 60 listeners.
No, this is going to get good ratings, guys.
I'm sure.
But one of the things that I try to tell people is when they're looking to buy stuff is that aside from the major companies we talked about, there's both the third-party authenticators, which is the ones that we listed earlier, PSA, JSA, Checkit. Then you have some really good first-party authenticators where they get the stuff signed, UGA, Upper Deck Authenticated, Steiner Sports is another one, some Phonetic. So there's stuff that, you can trust, and those are sort of the names that you can trust. But I kind of tell people, not everything with a cert means it's real, and try to avoid the Jack's Hollywood Collectibles and the Mickey Mantle's All-Star collectible things, and stuff that's not a recognized third party or first party authenticator. Not that it's necessarily not real, but that you should be more alert that when you're buying that you can't assess the price to it as if it is real, because those certs unfortunately don't carry any weight in the industry, and you may have something that's not real.
Yeah, and when you get to that, you really have to, when you get to that point, like, the trusted old, I don't know if you've seen these in collections, Dan, I have, but the lifetime guarantee on a, on a local store certificate, and they've been out of business for 20 years.
Right. It's as they say, it's not worth the paper it's written on. And you see a lot of that. If you see collections with a lot of that, be a little weary. Someone may have tried to get a deal when they were buying it, and sometimes it doesn't work out quite well. And then again, you could research now. There's some companies that started with the big boom in the industry in the early 2000s that are, not so credible as authenticators, and you're going to want to stay away from those as well. again, it doesn't mean that everything they did was not real, but there's a high likelihood that there may be an issue with the authenticity of the item. So you want to be really weary of some of the companies that had a little trouble.
Dan, let me ask you a question. I know COVID has really cut us out of a bunch of shows. I had planned on going to the National in Atlantic City. They pushed it back from the summer to December, and now they closed it out for the whole year. So we kind of lose that. But when are we going to see you at shows again? But when is everybody? Everybody wants to know. The whole world wants to know, when are we going to see Dan doing a show again?
You know what's funny? It's funny that you actually bring that up. My father today, we were just speaking, about the business, and he saw me going through a huge box of Beckett slabs that just came in. And he just said to me, he's like, when are you going to go back to doing shows? Were you going to do them if they start up again? And I think I am. I took a little break for a good year, maybe 2 years, where I just didn't do any shows. I still was at the shows, and I still, was involved with the market and buying and trading with everybody, but I didn't set up for a while. And Lenny, I think you could attest to this. Sometimes you just need a break mentally.
Well, it's funny that you say that. If you want to go right now and get a tag team partner, and let's split 2 booths. You let me know, because I'm kind of in the same boat where I'm like, I really miss. First of all, I miss hanging out with you, because we really haven't hung out in the past like couple of years. And we see each other, and it's fine. But the road stories when we used to go down and like set up at Valley Forge, like I come get you at like 8:30, 9 o'clock at your house in Long Island. I'm coming from Connecticut. I'm making the big U down on Long Island because I had the big truck, and we're getting ready to go down to Valley Forge and do the whole, marathon of 3 days. But we would actually get down there the day before because, and sometimes we're sitting in traffic and we don't get into our hotel room till like 1:30. Like, it's insane. But the camaraderie and the hanging out with like with you and some of the other dealers, like, a lot of people don't realize that, business gets done. There's business that gets done after the shows. Like, you might have a deal for somebody or whatever. Like, I'm going to call you right after this, 'cause I got an index card deal I'm going to sell you. And, but there's just so much action that goes on, and, you build a lot of friendships, and I miss that. And I'm sure you did too. Yeah.
I really do. The sports world, is such a great niche of people together. And like me, for many people don't know, me and Lenny for a while were doing shows together, and we would travel together, and it was some of our best memories, I'm sure, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And unfortunately nothing stays the same, right? And things change, and you get involved in other things, and you move on to different passions or different jobs, and everyone can, attest to that happening. But, it'd be nice to come together and listen. If you want to, when the COVID ends, if you want to get together and, I'm sure the two of us could put our heads together and put some product out there and have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing I'll say is, as I'm getting older, I don't want volume stuff. I'd rather come with some really nice pieces and do it that way. The less bringing boxes and things like that is just a little too much work for me. Yeah. And I'd probably stick to a nice couple showcases full of good stuff.
Well, you're almost 50 now, so you gotta.
Let me hit 45. Let me hit 45.
Well,
I was going to say, as you get older, less is more. It really is, and I feel like that in a lot of ways. But
except your basement. Except my basement. Well, that was me, 15 years ago. That was me buying everything Lenny wanted to pass along, because I never turned Lenny down. I never sold you junk set cases, by the way. I just want to
Okay. Okay. Well, I bought a few hundred junk set cases, whatever the case may be. The point is, I still have it all because I'm a hoarder. But as we get older, like even now, I'm thinking the same way. Just, minimize and put your best foot forward. Your best stuff goes out on the table at a card show, and, everybody gets to hang out. You sell some stuff, great. You don't, not the end of the world. But you know what? Yeah. Dan has such cool stuff. Lenny, you always have cool stuff. It's always a pleasure to go to shows. I've never set up at a show, and maybe one day I will, but the pleasure of going and seeing your stuff. I would stand Lenny, I forget. I used to hang out at Lenny's table all day. Lenny would go to the bathroom, be like, "Hey, Mike, just watch my table." But even at Dan, like when Dan had his tables, I'd sit and stare at all his autographs and just admire the cool stuff he had. So I really hope to see that again.
Yeah, you were looking at his stuff while my stuff was getting stolen. Thanks.
Probably. So all your 88 Topps Carlton Fist cards in your 10-cent box are now gone.
I know. Hey, the one last thing I want to talk about shows, and then we're gonna cut it off here. Dan, could you give us one of your most memorable moments? Because obviously, again, you create these relationships with some of the promoters and things like that. Was there a certain, and I know who you're going to say, but was there a certain celebrity or athlete or entertainment athlete that you just head over heels, just couldn't believe you met him and hung out with him? I mean, is there any story that you want to share with that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you're speaking to my hero, who I tell everybody, everything in my life, the passion I bring to everything I do is from one person, and that's Hulk Hogan. I know it sounds corny,
brother,
but he sold people on ideas, and I think our whole world is really based on that. Can you sell your passion in anything that you do to somebody else? Can you sell your friendship to people? Can you sell your love to somebody? And, he did that to me. He was able to stir a crowd and get people excited. So a couple years ago, I think it was the East Coast National, Brian and Jimmy knew that I was the biggest Hulk Hogan fan, and they paid for an experience to meet him. And it's just incredible. I mean, he's my favorite all time. I think he's absolutely amazing. I've talked to King Kong Bundy about it. And he says he actually is a great guy and put a lot of people into the business, helped a lot of people out. Of course, he's had his moments, as everybody, no one's perfect in this world, but he is it was an incredible experience to meet him. And at the same time, actually, Ric Flair was there. So I have a picture of the three of us. And,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was just, and I show people and they love it. And, yeah, so to me, it was just absolutely incredible to meet Hulk Hogan.
I don't know if that was the same show, because I know they've had Hogan there a couple times, and I remember being there, and they had Jimmy Hart, Mouth of the South, with his megaphone, literally announce Hogan, and I felt like there wasn't a ton of people so it couldn't have been East Coast National. It had to have been a different show. And I remember I remember he announced Hogan coming through, and, Hogan comes out. And when I tell you that there wasn't a head turned or everybody stopped what they were doing to look at Hulk Hogan. I mean, that's like how iconic dealers, collectors, they've had other guys like, wrestlers or whatever that, had come through. And, sometimes it's like, you almost feel embarrassed for some, some signers that aren't, traditional to a baseball card show. They just, kind of think outside the box. Hey, this guy would be great. And, then it kind of falls flat and you almost feel bad for the guy. Cause he's there and he's got 10 people in line and then he's sitting there for a half an hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But everybody turned their head when Hogan came through. Everybody, me included.
Well, I can imagine. He's an absolute icon. And you got to remember, even like a guy like Derek Jeter has his detractors. Someone's a Met fan will say, Derek Jeter sucks, or a Red Sox fan will say that. Nobody. We grew up in a generation where Hulk Hogan was our hero. For everybody. There was nobody rooted for the bad guys. Who rooted for? We appreciated King Kong Bundy, and maybe had a few people that rooted for Big John Studd, but not very many. It was Hulk Hogan. He was our hero, and we were universal in rooting for him. And that's where I think the difference is. It's like seeing Michael Jackson at his prime or the Beatles in the 60s. Like everybody loved Hulk Hogan and still does. Guys, we have to wear masks everywhere we go here in New York. The only mask I own is a Hulkamania mask. I wear it everywhere. So, I'm the biggest Hulkamaniac, brother.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys feel this way, but, growing up, we were such big Hulk Hogan fans that, we always cheered. I sort of suspended disbelief, not just for wrestling in general, but also what kind of wrestler Hulk Hogan was, because as I look back now and I watch his wrestling on the WWE network, he really did the same routine like every match. And you know what? You knew it was coming, and you didn't. It just was amazing. It was the same routine. You know, the scoop slam off the ropes, leg drop, 3 count, and then the I don't know what you call the celebrating and pointing to the crowd, and it was like clockwork every match, and you couldn't get enough of it. You could not get enough of it.
Yeah, and
I will say, I was turned on to Hulk Hogan before he was Hulk Hogan, and he was called the Incredible Hulk before I guess he was sued by Marvel. The WWF was sued, and he actually, if you watch his wrestling matches before he became who he was, he actually had some good moves. He wasn't the same over and over that people say. He was I wouldn't say he was the greatest wrestler, but he had better moves than he did when he was the champ. Put it that way.
Yeah, he had working moves, and I think part of that same routine was also the selling point of, he's the immortal Hulk Hogan. So, like you're going to get to the point in the match where, he's going to make the comeback, the shake the stringy hair that's all sweaty. He's going to start to Hulk up, and there's nothing you could do. And what's cool is I think some of my favorite matches were against like him and Mr. Perfect, because Mr. Perfect was an awesome worker, and and he sold like a lot of stuff very well. Like he'd Hulk up and throw him in the ring, and he'd flip over and and do all these crazy bumps, and I really thoroughly enjoyed those matches.
Yeah, to me there's nothing better. I know a lot of people love the Attitude Era, and I got a little less involved in the Attitude Era just because I was in college and other things were happening. But to me, the Rock and wrestling and that era was just it was incredible.
That's how I feel. That was my era too. Absolutely wonderful and awesome stuff. Dan, you're awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
Yeah, and thank you very much for coming on the show. I think I think our listeners are going to get a kick out of the the process of what you do, and hopefully they'll be able to get to locally in the tri-state area. They'll be able to come and check out your booths. And one of the things that we're trying to do, especially with this podcast, is just kind of put some of that show personality out there. And, if let's say they're getting into Mike's opening day room, or, they're coming over to the eBay store, CardKast on eBay, shameless plug. They kind of get to, they're buying from somebody that they know and they're comfortable with. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on as well. And like I said, be sure to look for Great Lucky Finds and D. Lissauer, as the links are going to be put below. And thank you guys very much for hanging out with us and listening. And we are out of here. A sincere thank you to all the listeners out there. If you like the show, please like, share, and comment below, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified when all of our new shows are uploaded. Click on the links below to join Mike and Len's Facebook page loaded with sports memorabilia content. Visit Mike's opening day break room to see tons of new products opened up daily that you can participate in. And lastly, visit our eBay store, CardKast, to look for the newest auctions of sports cards and memorabilia uploaded weekly. And we're out.